Palm Harbor Coastal Living. Today I am outside for the Pretty House Powwow with my dear friend Roy. Hi. Roy is with O'Neill's Tree Service. So Roy, tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, I've been with O'Neill's Tree Service since we started. Apollo is my brother-in-law, so about 2007 is when we got rolling. I've been a certified arborist for about 6 years now.
What does that mean?
That means I had to take a test that's very difficult, and you have to have lots of years of experience before you even take the test. But the thing about the certified arborist qualification is it's basically kindergarten. So you start with that, and then it builds from there. So many years of experience and in-field stuff like that. You know, it's one of those things where it's very prestigious to be certified arborist. 7 on staff.
Oh.
At O'Neill's.
So every tree guy isn't a arborist?
It's a thing, you know, people ask if you're an arborist. It's one of those tricky words, right? So an arborist, the definition is someone who works with woody plants. So if you trim your bushes,
everyone could be an arborist.
You're an arborist. You know, these guys are knocking on your doors or whatever, and you ask them if they're say yes, they're not lying to you.
It's going to be riveting as per usual.
Yes.
Roy is super smart when it comes to trees, so try not to glaze over, because there's a lot of little nuggets in here that you're going to learn today that will save you money, save you time, and then also build your confidence on what you need in a tree service. So hopefully that all makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And then what we try to do is establish goals and objectives from the get-go. So if we come to do a free evaluation, we try to figure out what it is that you want. So like some homeowners will be like, well, I want you to clean it up. And
right.
I'm like,
that's what I normally say.
Like, with the broom? Like, I don't understand.
I just want it to look pretty.
Yeah, so aesthetics, right? So aesthetics are very high on the homeowner's totem pole, whereas in arboriculture, aesthetics are very low on the totem pole. Right? Because we want to increase safety, we want to reduce the risk of failure, we want to make the tree safer, we want to get clearance. So the way they look
doesn't really matter.
Not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So tree is naturally beautiful, you know, and then beauty is in the eye of the
Lord, he's probably one of those guys who says women don't need makeup either.
Yeah.
Naturally beautiful.
So, I mean, I have a face for radio, so I don't know.
All right, so one thing though that he said to me earlier though is that I've taken away from this is that when you get like crazy with your cutting, it actually, although you think it looks prettier, you're actually making the tree like more sick and hurt because you're
full side.
Good.
Right? So it's literally just falling apart. There's lots of decay down here at the base. This tree had issues by looking at the canopy. I don't know if you can get it, but this clump of, see that big clump of green stuff right here? It kind of looks like, I don't know if you can see the laser on the video, but this is mistletoe, right? Mistletoe is a parasite. So trees that are healthy don't get mistletoe. And this tree is infested. I mean, I counted on one stem earlier that has 12 clumps. So this is a good candidate for removal, right? You got targets that are going to be parked underneath it. People walking by. What's
a target?
So a target is anything of significant value. So people, cars, homes, structures, fences, roads, you know, pedestrian, anything like that, animals. Something that if the tree were to have a failure could impact, that's a target.
I'm going to show more stuff on that tree.
Yeah, totally. If you want to go way out and see like the full range, you can see a lot of the canopy is missing. And we call it tip dieback. This time of year it can be kind of tough to tell because the trees are falling, right? In Florida, our spring is now, right? So, which I'm sure if you've been raking, you understand. So basically from about the start of spring training till the Masters is the worst. So, you know, this tree just got some issues, and I would recommend removal on this tree. You know?
Wow, that must be really bad. I never hear you recommend removal.
Yeah, it's super rare. I try to save them as much as
you
we
do
can,
try to save a tree.
But there's nothing that I could do that's worth the money to try to save it, right? And the risk could be too great, right?
Gotcha.
But is it dangerous? That's debatable, right? Because we just had 50-mile-an-hour winds, and there's a couple sticks and twigs on the ground. So this is what people don't understand: is a tree that doesn't have any canopy, the wind just blows right through it. It's not getting loaded, right? So the branches aren't.
So you hear that? So a tree that doesn't have canopy, the wind just blows right through it. Now, do you want a tree to not have a canopy?
Not necessarily, right?
Okay.
It depends on the species. So this time of year, some trees won't have a canopy, like crepe myrtles and sycamores and sweet gums. They don't have their leaves this time of year. So we can talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but there's another cool tree.
All right, let's go look at it. I'll flip around so you can walk me over there.
problems with laurel oaks is they're what we call poor compartmentalizers. So trees don't heal, they actually repair. So when they have an injury, like this one right here, they try to build wood to seal off that wound in 3 dimensions.
Okay.
So they're going to grow wood that's extra hard, we call it lignified.
Oh, God.
Get too tree dorky on you. Anyhow, it's trying to prevent the decay from entering, but when you make a big diameter removal cut on this particular species.
So is that what that was? There was a branch there and somebody cut it?
There was a branch that was over here. There was this one that's above us. I don't know if you can see that
Yep,
one.
I can see that one.
Right here. That was another big stem that was removed kind of poorly, and it decayed down, right? And so this one had a removal cut here and a removal cut here. I can actually touch my hand.
Come around and see that.
Just put this in here like this. You can actually see right through the cavity here. It's from one side to the other, right? So there's a big area of decay here, and then looking at the structure of this tree, you have a big stem here, a big stem here, a big stem here, all emanating from the same location. So if this tree gets loaded in a wind event, it can increase the likelihood of this tree having a failure, right? Then you look in these parts here, this black stuff that's kind of creeping out. So in the old days we called this slime flux, but that wasn't tree dorky enough, so we call it bacterial wetwood now. It's basically decay that's oozing out of the tree. Oh, this is another cool thing. See these mushrooms right here? So these will, if you ever have mushrooms that are like this, but attached at the base of a tree, you definitely want to get that looked at.
Okay, why?
So there are root rotting funguses that will actually attack the roots that are holding the tree up.
Oh.
So
Root rotting funguses.
yes, so
Okay.
they kind of infiltrate the root system, and then they're already in there, and they come up, and then the mushroom will actually come out. And then
So the mushroom's like a sign.
Yeah, the mushroom's definitely a red flag.
Like, hey man,
Hey man, you should definitely check it out.
there's a fungus among us.
I'll tell the jokes, you stick to drama.
Sorry. Just a second. Can't help
So,
myself.
but yeah, this tree also has some pretty big issues, right? Now, could we make this tree safer and buy time? Yes, but then what are the targets? What are the value of the targets? How long
Targets
the
are a
targets
parking
there
lot.
for? Right? So in a commercial setting, you have clients coming into this. If this tree falls onto the car and you didn't take care of it, it could be a problem for you potentially, right?
Right.
You know, and they also got water lines, everything. There's another water box there.
Oh yeah. Look at there.
So, you know, this tree has seen better days as well. All right, so let's go check out these crepe.
All right, let's go look at some more trees.
So this time of year, you see a lot of crepe myrtle. You see that public.
He laughs every time he says that.
Crepe murder is when these guys come in and they basically turn your tree into a hat rack. Because us being down here in Florida, we want everything to be green and beautiful. But crepe myrtle, I don't know if you can see it yet, doesn't have any leaves right now. So I'll show you.
And why is that? What does that mean?
So you have evergreens and you have.
So it looks like that because it's winter.
Yeah, and then you have certain trees that are semi-evergreen, where they'll have leaves most of the year, and then at this time of year they start dropping them, like your oaks, your live oaks, your laurel oaks. They're making a mess right now. So a laurel tree would be trimmed for firewood that year, and then the next year they do the next one, and then they just continue that type of pollarding. But those cuts are always done outside of the knuckle. What happens here in Florida is guys come down and cut it below the knuckle and re-injure the tree. Right, and people do it because they think they're invigorating more flower growth. But if you look at the canopy here, right, it's very full, right? And those little balls you see at the end, those are where the flowers were. So this tree had a lot. Right? So let's go over to a tree that didn't have any crepe murder done to it, and you'll notice the canopy looks very similar. So really, when you're having your crepe myrtle pruned, we got to look at a couple things. How close is it to structures? Can you get underneath it with the lawnmower? And are there any branches that are crossing?
Why does it matter if you can get under it with a lawnmower?
Because if you have no active line, but it does not actually kill the tree. No Spanish moss, ball moss, it doesn't kill trees. We can talk more about that too. But these trees, actually, this one had a couple cuts a while ago. Someone cut these off right here and it kind of swelled up. But for the most part, it's been left alone, right? So this is what a crepe myrtle is supposed to look like this time of year, right? And then
Not like a hat rack.
not like a hat rack. That's very bad. Don't let people do that or talk you into doing it. And if it's been done to your tree in the past, what we can do is what we call water sprout management. This tree has got perfect structure. if you look from the bottom all the way to the top, it's got one stem, one trunk. We call it a central leader, and then each stem is evenly distributed as it goes up. And if you look at the unions,
What's a union?
union is where this stem connects to a main stem. And anywhere you have a U shape, that's extremely well connected. Very, very, very strong. When you have V shapes, that's bad, right? U shape is strong, V shape is bad, right? And then this tree's got perfect structure, excellent grip on the ground, evenly distributed, doesn't have much leaves on it because it's winter.
You go, tree.
Right, that's an awesome one.
You're doing a great job. A beautiful specimen.
So another thing that people want to talk about a lot are palm trees.
Oh yeah, let's talk about palm trees.
So interesting fun fact, palms are actually not trees. They're grass, genetically.
What?
Yes, they are not trees. So the way we prune them is different than how you prune a hardwood. So what I'm going to talk about now is what we call best management practices. That's set forth by the University of Florida. We're lucky here in Florida to have the world experts at our disposal. I've been to lots of their seminars, and this is what we've kind of deducted from their science, right? So when you have your palm trimmed, you'll hear people talk about hurricane pruning, where it looks like a carrot, right? Or we call it like 11 to 1, where, and then some guys will even talk about trimming 9 to 3, and that's like, I think that's actually written in the ANSI standard, which is okay.
What's ANSI?
ANSI is the safety code, right? So they write all the standards for safety. So
Okay.
if the tree is pruned per ANSI standards and there's a failure, or let's say someone were to get killed, they're going to look back and look at the standards. So if the guy that you hire is not writing pruning specs per ANSI standard, he could be liable for making a bad pruning cut, or potentially even you could be for making the tree more hazardous. So it can get a little sticky on that. And people don't like to think about it, but it's one of those things that's the reality with arboriculture, is if you do everything per the standard, then if something were to happen, then you're covered.
Right.
Right? So best management practice for palm trees: no chainsaws, ever. The reason why is you can't sterilize a chainsaw. So if the tree guy is doing lots of tree work, he's cutting down trees that are diseased. So he could actually bring his chainsaw into your yard, trim your palm tree, and then that tree could actually get a disease.
Okay, flip it around for a minute.
Yep.
No chainsaws on palm trees. You said it so fast. I did not realize that you can bring disease to your palm tree if the person is not using something that's sanitized, and you cannot sanitize a chainsaw. So, back to you.
Yep. Clorox is not going to work. Lysol is not going to work unless the guy is pulling out a brand new chainsaw, brand new bar, brand new chain on each palm that he's trimming. Don't use a chainsaw.
Is anybody doing that?
What?
Brand new chain, brand new? No. Nobody can afford that.
You can't afford that. I mean, the saws are expensive, right?
Right. So what do you use?
Right. So what we use is a hand saw that we can actually sterilize with a butane torch, kind of like, needles.
Why are you pointing at
I
me?
figured that you would know this stuff. I'm just kidding. See, I told you I'd tell the jokes. But anyways, we'll sterilize with the butane torch before each tree is trimmed. And the other thing about that is we don't cut live tissue. So we try to cut dead fronds, seed pods, flowers, loose boots only. No green fronds. So remember, palms are not trees. So you'll have palm trees that will have, this one, I don't know if you can tell, but you look up in there, the frond will have some translucent yellowing in the tips. That's a potassium deficiency. 95% of the palm trees in Florida are potassium deficient. So how do you handle that? Is you add fertilizer, right? And palms are very needy, so you should really do it every 3 months. If you want to have beautiful palm trees and keep them as healthy as possible, it's proper nutrition and proper pruning. So no chainsaws, dead fronds, seed pods, flowers, loose boots, done by hand. Each tree is sanitized, the saw is sanitized before each tree, and then get on that regimen. Another side note. Just down here, as you can see, these injuries down at the base, these are caused by weed whackers.
Oh yeah.
So this is another way for that root rotting fungus I was talking about earlier that can enter from a wound. So trees don't automatically get funguses, right? It's kind of like a miracle of death. There have to be enough things going just wrong for the tree to get it. So if you're practicing the best management, injuring the base of it would be a violation, right?
Right.
So don't injure the bottom, and then it will give less chance for that particular fungus to get there. So same thing with hardwoods. You don't want to have the root zones damaged. Just imagine if you got hit in the throat with a weed whacker every week for 20 years. Your health would probably be compromised, right?
Yeah.
The vascular system is right behind the bark. Palms are a little different. They're vascular tubes, kind of like if you took a bunch of straws, held them together. That's how they get their nutrients.
Oh, okay.
Right? Where trees actually have flow.
Gotcha.
Right, up and down. Dial them and flow them. And get into that tree dork.
We're not going to get into that. I'm telling you right now.
So what happens if you don't trim the palm trees and we get a high wind event, like a couple weeks ago we had 50-mile-an-hour wind, is you'll have the dead fronds, they'll fall out. That's not a problem if you're in the middle of a yard, but it could be a problem if it's landing on stuff, like cars and people, right? So we would come in, knock out all the dead fronds, get rid of the seed pods, the flowers, right? The loose boots. And
What's a loose boot?
loose boot is basically, you see the laser on the video?
Yes. Well,
So,
yes.
The base of the frond is called a petiole,
Uh-huh.
right? So where this is connected, we call those boots. So on sable palms, you get these little feet, you know, and those can pull. Those you can just pull. If they come off easily by hand, that's okay. If you have to really yank on it,
Yeah.
you could injure the tree. You don't want to do that. So,
Okay.
Sable palms sometimes will actually have, from the bottom to the top, it'll have petioles. That's just a genetic trait. Still the same tree. Sable palm, cabbage palm, it's the same tree, right? But sometimes you'll see them. There they are, across the street.
Oh, yeah.
See how
That's
they
the type of palm tree my son tries to climb.
Yeah, so from the bottom to the top it has the petioles, where this is the exact same tree the petioles came off of. Right?
Why'd they come off?
It's a genetic thing, right? So you have a little bit more hair than I do.
Uh-huh.
We're both human. Right? Oh,
What's that divot?
Yeah, side note, right? So this little area here, a couple reasons that can happen. One, this could have happened at the point of planting. Like this tree was planted at that height,
Uh-huh.
and then it grew up from there, right? So the situation that it was in before could have had less soil or less nutrients in the
Same
soil.
thing with this one?
Same thing over here. Now another thing that can happen there, that's going to happen from over pruning. So when those guys come in and they trim it 11-to-1 or do that hurricane pruning, it causes the palm to elongate. Because the lower fronds are where it stores their macro and micronutrients. So if you lose the macro and micronutrients, the tree freaks out and tries to put more fronds out to get more macro and micronutrients.
Okay.
So by over pruning, you're making it worse, the situation. The other thing is the trees have been on the planet for like 300 million years, right? So they've evolved. So they didn't all of a sudden need humans to come and cut all the fronds off to make them safer for a high wind event. Okay?
Gotcha.
So what happens is palms only have primary growth. So like shark seed, they grow from what we call the apical meristem, from one stem, comes up from the top, and then the next one comes, and then the next one. It's just so on and so forth. So these new fronds that get sprouted, they're brand new. They haven't been through many storms.
Like babies.
Yep, they're very fragile. It's kind of like where the term greenhorn comes from, like a rose's thorn. When it's green, it's soft, but when it's old and it's rugged and it's been through lots of stuff, it's hard. So like on the nautical world, greenhorn is like a new guy, doesn't know anything. It's soft, right? Whereas the old rugged guy, right? He's a little bit more experienced. Same thing with these lower fronds. They're actually there to protect the heart of the palm. So a sable palm is actually supposed to look like a lollipop, like a round canopy, right? Perfectly circle. Same thing with Canary Island date palms, medjool palms. There's a whole other list of diseases that are wiping those out, and they all can be mitigated if you use proper pruning techniques and proper fertilization.
How often do you say we fertilize?
Every 3 months.
Okay. How often do we prune?
It depends on your aesthetic needs. So once a year or twice a year, depends, right?
Okay.
So if you're at a place that needs it to be really tight and clean, like an HOA or a building facility, twice a year should be sufficient.
Okay.
But that can get pricey, right? So people they'll say that O'Neill's is a little bit more expensive, but what are you getting, right? So like this haircut that I have doesn't take a lot of thought, doesn't cost a lot of money. That's the guy trimming with the chainsaw. Whereas pruning palm trees, like how they should be pruned, or even doing reduction pruning on oak trees, it's kind of like my wife's haircut. Highly trained person, very specific objective. They have their thought behind every cut. That guy costs a little bit more money, right?
Yeah.
That lady. So like here on the pygmy date palm, right? You can see the translucent yellowing on the frond, right? So that's just a potassium deficiency, maybe some manganese. So it just needs an all-around palm fertilizer. And then when you trim, you cut off the dead fronds, the seed pods, the flowers, and that's it. You know, this stuff right here, what I was talking about, boots, this can come off easily, right? Anything that comes off easily, we can take that off. But if it's hard, like these up here might be a little more difficult, I can't get that off. So that's not coming off easily. So we just knock off the stuff like that. Sorry.
That's all right.
This over here, you might have some of these in your yard. This is called an East Palaka holly. There's a disease wiping them out called Sphaeropsis. This is what it looks like. You get lots of dieback. You get lots of sprouting from the base. Deadwood. You know, there's nothing that you could have done or did to prevent it. It's just one of those problems that we have with this particular tree. So
It's an awful lot of moss on that tree.
Yes, so moss, what is moss, right? Moss is an epiphyte, which is an organism that eats off what's in the air around it. They are not parasitic, right? If moss killed trees, there'd be no trees in Savannah, Georgia, right?
And we know how pretty those trees are.
But yeah, when people, they see moss on a dead tree and they immediately think it's the moss that did it. But what's happening is, like, when we get out in the sun, we sweat, we perspire. But when you get under a tree in the summertime, it feels a lot cooler. The trees are actually sweating on us. That's called transpiration. They're actually getting rid of nutrients and water out into the atmosphere, but it's loaded with minerals, and that's what the epiphytes are eating. So one blows in, and then they tell two friends, and all of a sudden you have a lot of moss in your tree. So it doesn't hurt the tree. If you don't like the way it looks, we can climb in and pull it out. But if it doesn't bother you, then leave it. The only time moss can be a problem is if you get a big clump on an overextended branch over a target, and that branch gets loaded or gets heavy from rain or wind. That could increase the likelihood of that stem failing, but that's not a parasitic issue. That's more of a structural problem.
Okay.
Right? So we can handle that as well. So that's the thing about these evaluations. You figure out what it is that you need and want, and then formulate a plan to hit that. And sometimes people are like, I'm terrified of hurricanes. It's just, you know, legitimate here. But what you don't want to do, you can see that tree across the way, right behind the sign.
Yeah.
You can see the lower canopy on that tree has been eliminated, right? So we call that type of pruning lion's tailing. So like a lion's tail, there's nothing but then a tuft of leaves at the end. Let's go around here. There's another tree that has.
Okay.
I can talk about it. Like this laurel oak right here. So, guy knocks on the door, or you hire a tree guy, and you're like, I want to make the tree safer for a hurricane. The guy's like, okay, we can do that. We need to thin it out. And you're like, yes. And the guy goes in, he climbs through, he strips out all the internal branches. Tree looks nice and clean, aesthetically. But what's happening actually, right?
I don't know.
So we go over here, and you can see the laser on these cuts, right? So you have a removal cut right there, and I'll try to go slow for you. Another removal cut, removal cut, removal cut, removal cut, right? You come out to the end, more removal cuts. All out here, removal cut, removal cut, removal cut. Everything is getting removed from the internal branches. So the tree's alive, but every time you make a cut, there's going to be a reaction. So as nutrients are coming up the vascular system of the tree, they used to make left and right turns. They don't have those anymore. So now they get pushed out to the end. So it causes elongation. So the branches are growing more rapidly than they would have in the forest. So when you start thinking about wind loading, the higher we go in elevation, the stronger the force the wind is. You get to the top of a hill, the top of a building, the wind is blowing harder up there than it is down here. So when you have the internal branches stripped out, the tree is now elongating or growing more rapidly than it would in the forest. So it's not growing in diameter or mechanical strength. It's just getting longer. Then you have a tuft of leaves at the end. So you have, in essence, a longer mast with a bigger sail in the area where the wind is blowing at the greatest rate. Then putting more force at the point of connection. It's kind of like if you're carrying groceries, they're close to your body. You don't carry them way out here.
Right.
Right. So stripping out the centers doesn't make the tree safer during a high wind event. It does the exact opposite.
So how should a tree be pruned to prepare for hurricane season?
So depending on species.
Right.
So some trees don't need anything. Like I'll come out there and I'm like, you don't need to do anything. And people look at me like I'm crazy. Right. Like I had a gentleman last night. I went to Hurricane Michael. I was there the day after the storm went through. Right. The trees that were standing were live oak. Everything else was destroyed. We're talking Category 5, worst impact we've ever had. And live oaks were fine. There was nothing wrong with them. They didn't have any leaves, right? And they had a couple stems that failed, but for the most part, they made it. Laurel oaks, like these over here, all the pine trees, and that type of an event, they failed. So there's no pruning that I can do
to
make
save
the
it.
trees safe for that type of an event.
Right.
What you do in that scenario is you get the stuff that you can't replace, you get in your car and you leave. You don't stay, right? My opinion on what to do with the hurricane completely changed after going to Hurricane Michael, right? First house I went to, guy had 7 pine trees on it. It was about 6'5". You know, I have to look up to a guy. He's a big dude, and he just starts crying, like literally bawling in his doorstep. And I was not prepared for this emotionally. And he told me that he was in the bathroom holding his daughters, and he had his mattresses over his head, and he was waiting to die. But that's how serious this can get, right? But the pruning, I couldn't have prevented that. Right? There's nothing I could have done to make that safer, which is the objective of why you're hiring the tree guy. Can he make it safer, right?
Right.
Is it possible? And you can make a lot of things safer, and you can do a lot of raising without stripping out the centers of a tree.
Okay.
It's tough to get your head wrapped around until you see it, but when you can take the load off of the end, the weight, it's not only going to reduce in length, so it's going to come back, but but then the weight's out there, it lifts up.
So if you trim off the edge of the branch will lift.
Yep. And it will be, the lever arm is lessened.
So you've got less chance that it's going to pop.
Right? And then the other thing is, let's say this is a canopy, it's over the roof of the car, right? Or the house, right? Making it farther away is not necessarily safer. Okay? When you increase distance, you increase time, speed, force, momentum. So if you now take this stem, for example, and put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 larger diameter removal cuts on a tree that doesn't repair well. We saw what happened on the other one over there, where the decay went through. So you have decay, 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 longer lever arm, now more distance from your target, and this gets loaded, you've significantly increased the likelihood of that failing and impacting your stuff.
All right, let's get out from underneath that limb. I don't want to be a target. Let's talk about invasive species.
Funny you should mention that.
Right?
So, whenever you have fence lines or like property lines or power lines or the edge of homes, you're going to get invasive species. So this comes with the experience, these types. This is called a carrotwood right here. This is the most invasive species in Florida. Get in tight on these. This is this leaf shape. That's a Brazilian pepper. Some of you might have these in your yard that have really pretty red berries. Actually a really pretty tree, but they're super invasive. And one thing that's interesting about invasive species is they're very, what we call allelopathic. So that's another one of those words. Don't roll your eyes at me, woman. So
what does that mean?
So what that means is they make the soil more advantageous for them to grow, and they kill the stuff around it. Right? So when you get into a bunch of Brazilian pepper, if you just lift it up and look underneath, all you see underneath is Brazilian pepper.
Well, they're a bunch of little butt heads.
Yes. So there's a couple trees that are very good at that, and these are prolific, right? Super, super invasive. And then they have some hedges and whatnot. It's just from not being maintained, really. So it's invasive, right? So they're going to pop up like no tomorrow. They grow with you. I almost wish we could take the genetics from invasives and to other trees that are more desirable. There's some more mistletoe on this tree up here. Those big green clumps.
Yeah. What does that mean again?
Mistletoes are a parasite, right? So trees that are healthy don't get mistletoe. So sometimes that one kind of might have gotten blown in from a neighboring tree. Like this tree over here looks in worse condition, but their seeds on there are sticky, so a bird will get into it or a squirrel. You dumped over into this tree, and then now that tree has it. So we can save this tree by cutting that mistletoe out. Right? There's a method to do that as well. There's like a technique for it, which is also in the ANSI standard, right? How to do that.
What are those big, huge green leaves growing on that tree?
That's a vine called a pathos vine.
Okay.
So some vines are very harmful, some are not. That one's one of the ones that's not that big a deal.
Okay.
So when vines become an issue is when they overtake the canopy. So when they overtake the canopy, then the tree doesn't do photosynthesis, and that could cause some issues, right? So Virginia creeper, grapevine, dodder vine, those vines are bad. Poison ivy can be a problem. If you have that here, poison oak. That particular vine's not a big deal. Some people have night blooming cereus, which is a cactus that's very spiky, but it creates a beautiful flower. Right?
Look at this pretty tree.
Yeah, that thing's amazing. Right now, look at how the stems came up and then they hooked over.
Yeah, why'd they do that?
So we call that phototropism.
Good God.
It's for light. All right. So the way the sun flies across our sky, it's more on the southerly side. So this tree senses the canopy of these trees in the morning. It's creating a shadow. So for this tree to get light, it had to grow in this direction.
Which happens to be over the building.
Oh, right over the building, over the structure, right? But this particular species, live oak, is extremely strong, right? So the chances of this tree having a failure, it's going to take a hell of a push. Tornado, right? A lightning strike, a hurricane. But you can see what happens when you have a tree that has a genetic potential of this magnitude in the urban environment or even in the commercial area. It can cause havoc, right? So you have giant buttress roots over here and over here trying to anchor down, but it's just lifting up this sidewalk. There's really nothing that we can do to fix the sidewalk and save the tree, unless the sidewalk is moved over here. We can do the exact opposite. Like take this and just flip it over, put the turn way over there. Right, so
Can you stop a tree from growing toward the sidewalk?
yes. So there's also, so like if we took the diameter of this tree, let's say it's 40 inches, right? You multiply multiply that by 3, that gives us 120 inches, right? That's what we call the critical root zone. Critical by, those are the roots that are holding the tree up.
Okay.
So you don't want to cut roots within the CRZ.
Okay.
So if you can get outside the CRZ, you can actually prune roots and not affect the structural integrity, right? It will affect the health of the tree, but if we have a structure, we can try to fix the structure and save the tree and do it within the standard, then we win on all aspects, right?
Okay.
So I have a tool, it's called an air spade. It's like a pressure washer, but there's no water. So we can come in and blow out all the soil and expose all the roots. So then we can come in and make pruning cuts on the roots and then install a product called BioBarrier, right? And we can do 2 layers of that where it helps thwart roots from growing back in that structure. It doesn't eliminate it, but it slows them down.
Okay.
So roots are adventitious. They're gonna grow where it's easy for them to grow. So people always worry about a big tree like this right next to their house.
Right.
If the tree was planted at the point of the home's construction, the chances of the tree damaging the home is very, very low. Because the roots are gonna grow towards the side of the home, they're not gonna like it, they're gonna change direction, right? The foundation is deep. Right? Whereas sidewalks and driveways and pavered walkways, they're shallow, only 4 inches or so. The roots will lift those right up like no tomorrow.
Okay.
So you want to try to have a tree that can get really, really big, maybe not plant that tree in that location, right? Or think about that tree in the future getting a lot bigger and potentially damage your stuff. Or take the countermeasures and put the barrier in before the tree gets there, right? So that's kind of like what we call best management practice, right? Try right tree, right place, you know, get a different species. If you can't take a tree that can get 60 feet tall and have a 200-foot spread and get 60 inches in diameter, maybe not want to plant that right next to your driveway, right?
Maybe
or
not.
an easement, right?
Yeah.
So,
What about like next to a sidewalk, next to a road?
okay, so we have a kind of a case study going on right now in Highlands of Innisbrook where they planted all these trees along the sidewalk, and it's got this gorgeous canopy that
Beautiful.
goes over the street, right? It's gorgeous, and we've been pruning these trees for years, but now it's to the point where you have street, 5 feet sidewalk, and then just a little strip. And you've seen these in the easements, right? So now the trees are getting so big that the sidewalks are getting damaged. So what we're doing now is we're removing the sidewalk, air excavating the soil, and then putting a product in there that kind of tricks the roots to think that they're in the oxygen or in air and making them dive under.
Oh.
Right? So then what we do is we put this stuff over the roots, and then on top of that you can put a new sidewalk. So we can save the tree, fix the sidewalk, handle the problem all in one, and we'll know in a couple, you know, it's going to take a while to really see the benefits of it, but if this could change a lot of neighborhoods, right? And municipalities, right? So it could be to save a lot of trees, right? So if I could save the tree, I will, right? So as people laugh at me all the time, when we come up, they're like, this tree, I'm terrified of it, and I'll educate them, and I'm like, oh, okay, happened to me last week, right? So they had a tree that was less desirable, that had poor structure, that fell during that high wind event, and then they had a big live oak next to their house, and that one doesn't really have any problems, and it really didn't have any limbs fall off it at all after that 50-mile-an-hour wind, so there's no reason to remove that tree or be afraid of it, right?
Okay.
So,
What makes a tree dangerous?
Structure is one thing. So when you have stems, actually, this one's actually a pretty decent example of what I can get into here. So right here you have 2 stems of similar diameter growing from the same location, and they're not U-shaped.
Yeah, we got a V.
They're more V-shaped, right? So we're on the center here.
All right.
So when you look at this tree, see how this is kind of bulging out?
Yeah.
So this side's growing in diameter, that side's growing in diameter, and they're growing in diameter against each other. Right, so as this tree gets bigger, they're going to continue to push apart. So on this particular species, I can fix that. So what we do, you know when people break their legs and they put those halos around with the rods through?
Yes.
We can actually drill through these trees and put in 1-inch stainless steel rods to actually increase this defect tenfold.
So he just needs a halo.
He definitely needs something, right? Because the likelihood of this tree failing is increased due to this bark inclusion. And as that gets bigger, it makes it more and more. Now, live oak is literally the strongest tree you could have in your landscape. Every cubic foot weighs 75 pounds. So just a little box like that is 75 pounds. So just to give you some reference, if we were to make this cut here and this cut here, you're probably looking at 12,000 pounds.
Which is another great reason to have qualified people cutting your trees.
Yes, especially when you have overextended, elongated branches over stuff. Now, do I think that this tree is dangerous? Not at all, right? I don't think it's going to take a hell of an event for this to fail, but to help eliminate that failure, especially over this particular area, adding that supplemental support could really save this tree for a lot longer and preserve it. So we've done stuff like this at the Baranoff Oak down in Safety Harbor. I don't know if you've seen that, at the big props that are holding the stems up. Down in downtown Dunedin, you have a bunch of trees that have it in there. We also do lightning protection. We can actually take the lightning off the tree,
Nice.
put them up in the canopy and run a copper wire out into the yard and get it away from your house. So that's another cool. If you have a really awesome tree, you don't want to lose it, really big, and it's got bad structure, we can potentially save it.
Okay.
With that type of stuff, right?
So let's talk about taking trees down.
Sure, like removals.
Yeah.
So that can get kind of tricky. Oh, this is a good example of co-dominant structure, right here with the big bark inclusion. See that guy right there? So in the commercial environment, you still need to pull permits. Right? You have to get a permit. If the tree is not on the invasive species list, it's larger than 4-inch in diameter, you need to have a permit.
That's for commercial use.
That's commercial. Now, in the urban environment, right, or
Residential.
Environment, right, this gets a little sticky, right, because there was a new law that got passed this past June called House Bill 1159. And basically what that states is that if an ISA certified arborist or a landscape architect deems that a tree is dangerous to people and or property, it could be removed without a permit. Right, so the wording on that is where it gets kind of sticky, because what does the word dangerous mean, right? So if you can drive down in your car and look at your phone, that's dangerous. Or you could ride your bike on the side of the road, that's dangerous. But this tree with the co-dominant structure with the large bark inclusion, is it dangerous? I don't know, right? Because that's the funny thing, right? And my understanding of the word dangerous is that this tree is going to fall down any minute, or within the week. That's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And some people would think that tree is dangerous because it could fall during a hurricane, right? Or they don't like the leaves, so they want a guy to write that it's dangerous. So then it comes into the ethics of the arborist, right? So just remember, O'Neill's definition of the word dangerous is completely different than a lot of our competition, or I should say other tree services in the area. Right? There's about 1,000 in Pinellas County, right?
Wow, and that doesn't include the guy with the chainsaw.
This is another crazy thing, right? Is you don't need a license to be a tree guy.
Huh.
You don't need a license.
You just need a chainsaw
there is
and-
no license, right?
Oh.
So when you see guys out there that are advertising licensed and insured, they could have a business license to be in business in Palm Harbor, right? That's different. There's not like when you're going to be a hair person, you need to have a hair
Right.
license, right?
Real
If
estate, you need a real estate license.
right? If you're going to be a contractor or a plumber or an electrician, you have to have literally a state license.
Yeah.
There is none of that in Florida for tree guys.
Huh.
So I don't know what license they're talking about when they refer to that, and it's probably going to get a little heat on the thread, but you don't need a license, right? So you can go up, Amanda, you're going to be you're an arborist.
Tree gal.
You're an arborist, right? Do you trim your bushes, right? You're an arborist, and you know how a tree serves.
So then if that's not the way you can feel confident, how can you feel confident with who you hire?
So what I would do in this particular scenario, right, is I would actually try to get a permit on this tree. Right? So I would go to the county and I would write reasons, right? So this is a laurel oak. It's a shorter lived tree. It's got poor structure. It's co-dominant. It's got two stems of similar diameter growing from the same location.
With a V.
With a V, right? You can actually see the bark inclusion. You have a large
What does
section
bark inclusion mean?
Where you have two stems of similar diameter growing from one spot. This area is not well fused together. There's decay in there.
Yeah.
Right? So when trees fail under blue sky conditions, like a day like today, a beautiful day, if they just fail for no reason, it's because of bark inclusions. Right?
That damn
This
V.
right here, large diameter removal cut, this tree will never repair from this wound. It will only decay. That's only a few feet away from that defect. Right? So, and you have targets of significant value that are here for a long time. So the chances of them approving of removal for this tree is likely. Right? Because of those reasons.
Yeah.
Is the tree dangerous? My opinion, no. Right? But it has a potential of being dangerous if it were to fail. Right?
Someday.
Yeah. So, but we can handle that before it's a problem. But to write a letter saying that this tree is a danger at this moment, I don't feel comfortable doing.
So just get the permit.
Yeah, just pull the permit. And this is the other thing. If you get a permit, then the city approves it, or the county, or whatever it is that you get it from, and then there's no room for interpretation, right? They got approved, right? The thing that people don't like about it is because they're going to make you replant,
Right.
right? That's one thing about the HB 1159 is you don't necessarily need to replant, right? But I'm only since June, I've written 5 letters.
Oh, okay.
That's it. And we've removed hundreds of trees since June, right? So,
See, I guess I feel like the only time, and I don't know anything, but I always tell Michael, well, we can't remove that tree. It still has green leaves.
yeah. So
That's
you could have-
probably
this
not
is
the
another
right way to-
crazy thing, right? Is you could have a tree with terrible structure that has a fully thick canopy that's been lion's tail, and that tree is more likely to fail.
Oh, wow.
Versus a tree that is in decline that doesn't have canopy, because then that defective part isn't getting loaded during wind.
Huh.
Right? The wind's just blowing right through
Yeah.
it. Right? Kind of like that one out front.
Yeah.
Been dying for a long time, but it's still standing. So how dangerous is it? Right? That one's far along, way worse shape than this one. But an argument can be made to get a permit for removal on this tree. Right? But I wouldn't just write that this tree's dangerous.
So is there an average lifespan for a laurel oak?
Yep, 40, 50, 60 years. In
Okay.
the forest, ideal environment, maybe 80. Right? So here's another laurel oak in the corner that has been, hopefully that you guys know this term now, severely lion's-tailed.
Lion's-tailed. I mean, that's just a lion's tail if I've ever seen one.
This is a perfect example of exactly what not to do.
Okay, so what should have been done?
So first thing that should have been done is the objective should have been established. Right? What's the objective of doing that?
If I had to guess, it would be people don't want crap on their cars.
Right. So that is a goal that's extremely difficult to achieve.
Because that's a tree.
Just look right here. Right? I can't stop that. Right? So if I were to take 30% of the full canopy, and let's say before we did it, we raked 10 leaves, right? And I take 30% of the canopy, now you're raking 7 bags. So are you getting a good return on your investment? I don't know. It's your money.
Yeah.
Right? I can do the work, but I don't think it's a really good return, right?
Gotcha.
And then what exactly is happening, right?
Right.
Damaging the tree. So when we establish goals and objectives, if you want to keep the tree, one of the goals should be preservation.
Okay.
So lion's nailing would be a violation of that goal. You're making it more likely to fail, right? The next goal should be increasing safety, reducing the risk of failure, increasing clearance. Those are your hierarchy. Aesthetics and reducing mess are very low. I want to get more light to my grass. That's a tough goal, right? Very tough goal, because you know what? There's no grass in the forest, and that's a giant forest tree. Okay? So even if we were to, like, if you look at this one, right up at the sun, even if we were to take 80% of the canopy, you still got all that wood. The wood is what's creating the shadows. And then, as the sun moves, the shadows move. So to get a lot of light underneath a big giant tree like this is a very, very difficult goal to achieve without butchering the tree or without taking your money knowing that they're not really going to give you.
So don't plant grass under a tree.
Ideally, right? But that's not the urban environment, right?
They get like a bed with shrubs or something.
Yeah,
Grass is kind of overrated in my opinion.
grass takes
Very
a lot-
difficult.
Well, it takes a lot of you to keep grass beautiful.
I don't really love grass.
Chemicals, watering,
Yeah.
mowing, a lot of maintenance, right?
Makes my feet itch.
Makes you feel it. There's a lot of problems with grass, right? Grass is for, in my opinion, ballparks and golf courses, right?
Yeah.
So in the urban environment, we should have a Florida-friendly landscape. Stuff that's native to Florida, and they attract butterflies. It can be really beautiful, less maintenance, less water.
What attracts butterflies?
It's all types of different plants. There's
Okay.
That's a whole other road down. You can go down here.
All right, we'll go down that road another day.
Yeah. But yeah, all sorts of, I mean, you can go to University of Florida Extension Office down in Largo. They can tell you everything you want to know about butterflies. And dragonflies. That's another cool thing. You can attract a lot of dragonflies. If you have a lot of mosquitoes in your yard, plant plants that attract butterflies or dragonflies. Because dragonflies eat like some obscene amount of mosquitoes every day.
This is kind of a spring question. I'm springing it on you and you might not know the answer or want to talk about it, but is there a type of shrub or bush that someone should plant if they, say, buy a house that backs up to a busy road like Belcher or 19? Or
With noise canceling. So there's a handful that you can do. It depends on your styling. So if you want something that you can do bamboo, right? Which
Don't do bamboo.
You can do bamboo. But, if you want good bamboo, you go to Bamboo Gardens over in Palm Harbor, talk to Marianne, she's wonderful. But this is the thing about bamboo. You look at it, okay, I like that, then take your eyes and look at the ground. You see all that mess? If you want that in your yard, then plant bamboo. The only problem with bamboo is it's really difficult to get rid of after the fact. Right? So if you want to remove it, it gets extremely expensive. And it's really hard to get rid of because the root zone has got a tremendous amount of energy. Side notes. Viburnum is an excellent hedge, and there's about 5 different varieties. Awabuki is the prettiest. It's got a shiny, fancy leaf on it. Does really well. It can get about 25 feet tall.
Nice.
Keep it nice and hedged. Viburnum rhodorotissum, there's a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
Viburnum is a great one. If you want it to be sort of like bamboo, but not be bamboo, you can do Areca palms. Those can get about 20, 25 feet
I'd
tall.
probably call that Erica.
Yeah, Erica.
Erica palms.
Areca palm, and then also fishtail palms.
Your
Those are
wife
really
says
good.
hi.
She does. Hi, white lady. She's the one that supports all of this.
Yeah.
I obviously don't make money doing tree work.
Not standing in the parking lot talking to me about it.
But Areca palms, fishtail palms, the viburnum, podocarpus. Podocarpus is also a really good one. Evergreen, spring all year round. They used to have a bunch of them down off of Belcher and Sunset Point.
Yeah.
Like 20 feet tall. That's another really good one for sound dampening. And then cypress. So like Geiger's house up there, all those cypress trees, that's a really good one to do as well if you have the room for it. Right? So that's a good privacy one as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if people have questions about their trees?
Questions, you could call us. You know, our number is 727-599-7548, o'neillstreetservice.com. We can just give you a free evaluation. So basically,
So there's no charge for you to come out and look at the
we
trees?
don't charge for that at the moment. Actually, we're never going to charge.
Oh,
So.
sounded like it was a limited time offer.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where we've talked about charging for estimates because my time is valuable, right? And I only have so many people that I can see every day. We've got 7 certified arborists. So if I'm doing an estimate, Paul's doing an estimate, then that's 5 guys in the field actually doing the tree work.
Right.
Right, so we try to maximize our time as much as possible. In the Facebook world or Palm Harbor Happenings world, we get lots of referrals that way. But what happens sometimes, or like Angie's List, for instance, people will book up an appointment and they'll call us on Monday, but I can't get there for a week or so.
Well, sure.
Right, so what happens is they hire someone in between, and then they don't call and let us know. So then I have that window,
my
and I
gosh.
can't fill it in. So that gets a little frustrating. Not to complain, but that's one little
But he
thing.
just did.
If you find someone that is, so this is what you got to do to worry about or protect yourself. Does the guy have workman's comp? Does he have general liability? Can he provide it for you in writing? Right? So if he can, and you feel comfortable, and you feel like that guy can do a good job, then hire him.
What were those things again?
Workman's comp, general liability, right? So those are huge. If he's a certified arborist, that's even better, right? He doesn't need to be a certified arborist. I have guys on my staff that aren't certified arborists that they know exactly how to prune a tree, trim a tree, remove a tree. They're not certified arborists, right? So you can be trained and not be certified, right? So remember, certification is like kindergarten. So there's many, many more levels to that. But to protect yourself, so you're gonna have guys that are gonna say they're workman's comp exempt.
How's that possible?
You only have 3 people.
Oh.
Yeah, there's only 3 guys, so they're exempt. So does that protect you when he gets hurt? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. So, but if a guy gets killed on your property and he doesn't have it, everything that you've worked for is at risk. So, yeah, I don't want licensing in the tree service industry because, like, I feel like O'Neill's, we go above and beyond when it comes to the ethicalness of the company. Right?
How so?
Well, we run a Florida drug-free workplace for one thing. That's rare in the tree service industry. Right? When I say rare, I don't know another one that does.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there might be, but I don't know
Right.
who they are. Right? So our guys have to pass a drug test. My trucks are CDL trucks. They're our trucks. All the equipment that we use is ours. We have our own crane. We got bucket trucks, lifts, grinders. Everything that we bring to your property is ours, unless the situation calls for a crane that's bigger than what we own.
Right.
Like sometimes I need a 200-ton crane. Right?
Oh, my word.
You can reach a lot further than we can.
Right.
Right. But legal rudiments are in. You know, people ask me if I give a cash discount. I don't. You know, every penny that we make gets reported. We don't do any cash deals. So people that have cash that want to pay for our tree work, I tell them to use one of their credit cards and then do that because I don't charge you a credit card processing fee.
Okay.
If you have an Amex that gives you a lot of points, use that card with us and then pay it off directly with cash, right? And then just use cash if you can't control yourself with the credit cards.
Now that we've had the financial moment with Roy. Thank you for that. So what about cool tree stuff that's coming up?
Cool tree stuff. So actually we have on March 7th is the Florida State Tree Climbing Championship. And we'll have
Say that again.
The 2020 Florida State Tree Climbing Championship.
State Tree Climbing Championship.
Yep, so-
Didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's exciting. So my guys, not only do they climb trees all day, they get home on the weekends and they go and climb trees. So one thing about tree climbing is we actually don't climb the trees, we climb ropes. And when you're climbing ropes, it's all about rope angle. What I mean by that is we have a harness that you're on and your rope is above you, you have a good rope angle. If the rope is horizontal, you can have a big pendulum, right? And then you can impact the ground at a significant rate and slow down rapidly. Right? That can cause lots of bodily harm, right? We call rapid deceleration. So there's an event at the Tree Climbing Championship where they'll put a 180-pound dummy up in the tree and then present a scenario that the guy got injured or he's unconscious or whatever. And you have to come into the ring and assess the situation. Pretend like we're calling 911. You get up in the tree, you assess the body, get him down safely. Right? So
Where's the Florida Tree Climbing Championship?
It's in Kissimmee. I don't know the exact address off the top of my head. But
Will there be some O'Neill guys in the
We'll
competition?
have two guys there. So Carson and Brian. Carson actually won the 2014 North American Open Tree Climbing Championship.
Wow, so many competitions I had no idea
Yeah, we
existed.
got lots of tree dorkiness with that. So these are like super, it's an awesome group of guys that have a lot of passion for arboriculture, that get together and then they show techniques and equipment and way to manipulate the equipment to make it safer, make it faster, make it more efficient. There's a lot of education and it's exciting, right? It's, they're hitting bells and they're trying to do it as fast as they can. They do some pretty cool stuff. There's big swings. Generally they have kids climbs there, which are awesome. The kids love it. My kids love going to it. It's a blast. Lots of education. You get to see big equipment. Sometimes they let the kids go up and down in the bucket trucks, or the cranes are there. The kids really have a good time with it. But my guys do it not for bragging rights or whatever. They just have a lot of passion for it, right? It's a lot of fun. So there's certain events like we have open ascent, where you're basically going from the bottom on the ground, climbing up the rope 75 feet as fast as you can. Fastest guy wins that event, right? So there's different ways you can climb the rope. There's an open ascent where they basically climb up the side of a tree, or where you just try to get up to a point on the tree as quickly as possible. That's what Brian's really good at. Carson's really good at what's called the aerial rescue, and then we have the work line, and then there's throw line. So it's a really cool, it's a day.
What was the date again?
March 7th. Yep. If you search Florida State ISA Tree Climbing Championship, it'll pop right up.
I'll put the link in the text, guys, so you can come back here and see it. I will also, let me flip around because I'm just like a nagpie person. I'll also put a link for O'Neill's in the text with the phone number, and just a little reminder that they do offer free evaluations if you have some questions about your trees before you perform crepe murder. It is funny when you say it. So thank you so much, Roy, for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
It was really helpful. I hope you guys feel like you learned something today. If you didn't, it's your own fault, because he was very knowledgeable and also very nerdy. Bye-bye, guys.